Hello and welcome. My name is Edna White. I am a life coach. I am an author and also a motivational speaker. But I'm also in front of you today to tell you my story. I want to tell you about what I experienced as being a fatherless woman. Now, being a fatherless child, I really didn't understand it, right? And I kind of perceive things differently as a child. I knew my dad wasn't there, and I heard all these stories which weren't true, and all this other stuff, and I really couldn't decipher it. But as a woman, um, I'm seeing things differently. So I want to talk to you about my faith, being fatherless, fatherlessness, and all the emotional healing that had to take place. My journey without a father, and trying to understand where my father was, I would always ask my mother, "Mom, where's my dad?" And one time she told me he was, he died in Vietnam, in a war. Then the second time I asked again, she said he doesn't want to have nothing to do with you. And then when I got married, and I didn't want to get married, my mom was kind of like forcing me to get married because I had a baby, I had a wedlock. And let me just say this, I'm revealing most of this stuff is because I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I just believe that people do things in their own trauma that they think is right. And that's what my mom was doing. So what I'm saying to you on both parts of this is that it's important to recognize, reveal, and then reframe. Recognize, reveal, and then reframe. No one gets fault when that happens, but you learn lessons. So when I got pregnant, because again, I wasn't taught about sex, but that's another one, another issue altogether. And so I didn't know it was happening, and it happened, and there you go. So my mom wanted me to marry the child's father, which is my children's father presently, and I didn't want to be married because I felt like I had all these things to do and go through and all this stuff because I wanted to get out of town. I wanted to get out and get out of the rut that I was in because being a child of childhood trauma, no one really understood the need to get out and get safe. So I figured I was going to do that. But anyway, my mom said no. And so when I started to get married, and she wanted me to get married, and we had to get this paper signed by my dad. And it came back, mailed back to me, mailed back to my mother, and she didn't show it to me. And I was like, "Oh, where's that paper?" She didn't think anything about it. I guess she just like kind of brushed me off, but I went to go look for it. And lo and behold, it was my dad scratched out everything. And so and said she's too young. And he signed his name. And I'm like, wait, what? He's alive? And so thus started my journey I didn't pay any attention when I was that young, but I was 27 the first time I went to go visit him because no one could tell me where he was, what was going on. And that brought about a rift between my mother and I, even more. We had stuff going on then, but even more. We were ripped apart. So the journey for me was a significant one, and it was part of my life because when I was at 27, I I was going through men like it was crazy, and not even getting to the first base. It was really like I didn't want to be bothered because I was aggravated most of the time because I didn't trust them, and then if they were too kind, I still didn't trust them. So my daddy issues were big and blazing. Okay. And not until I got older, when I started to visit him more often, and be able to recognize that everybody has their issues and their things, and if they're not fixing them, all they're doing is recycling them through us. And I had to stop, a lot of things. I had to stop a lot of things, but in that time, I knew what I was missing. From 27 to like 32, I knew what I was missing. the safetyness that I was supposed to have, the companionship and the camaraderie and the love of a father speaking good things into you, saying great things to you, being the first man that ever said anything lovely to you. I missed all of that. And somehow I was very empty. And, I thought myself that, hey, I am not going to be like this. I can get over this. This doesn't mean anything. Well, it means something when it comes to the emotional life and your behavioral life. It means a whole lot. I was tricked and duped on that as well. But here is my journey that it starts to get a lot muddier, and a lot clearer at the same time. At that very same time, after learning about my dad, I was 18. And although had gone to church before and been involved with church before, my mom really thought I was too young to be involved that deeply into church, right? So when I got to 18, I needed to belong to something or someone or some place, some safety. And I entered into religion. And that's where I found this space now to be something and have a father figure that can take me not only from this world, but to the next world. And that's what religion, in my prior knowledge, in my knowledge now, not prior, but in my knowledge now, that's what religion was for me. It was a place that I found safety and I found camaraderie, or so I thought, and someone who was a father figure that could give me that safety here and then take me to a place that I don't even know where it is, but take me there. That's what I received. That was the behavioral impact, and the emotionalness was that now I have somebody I can call my own. Now I have somebody who can call my spiritual father, which was not even right because God is really the spiritual father. Eek. So I didn't know any better. And so that's a different story altogether. So religion became that for me. And as I'm moving through religion, right, 29 years, I'm not learning anything. I'm being told that I'm not taught how to manage money. Fathers do. I'm not taught that you need to get out there and fly and spread your wings and enjoy things. I'm not taught that. I'm not taught you need to date. This is how you date. I wasn't taught that. I didn't get the opportunity to have friends and be able to talk about, to my father about my friends and what they were doing. I didn't get that. I didn't have that. All the things that my father, or not having a father, should have taught me, religion still didn't teach me. Looking back on it, it didn't teach me anything. All it did for me was have me walking in place like the Israelites, 40 years around and around and not finding what was already within. Now, you can't change that you're fatherless, and you can't change that you're motherless. But what you can do is be able to cope and navigate those things and educate yourself, because you have the capabilities of being able to do that. And I didn't learn this until later on in life, that I could reparent myself. What is it that I was missing? Those things that I was missing, I did not think about. Because I thought that the same things that, let me tell you, the same things that I didn't get with being fatherless, the same thing I found in religion. Nothing. The worst thing was when I chose to have, because I didn't have a father, I found a father within the church. The worst thing that happened is every time someone hurt me, it felt doubly hard. Why? Because they were responsible for my physical life, the personal life that I had, and my spiritual life, and it hurt me even more. So compounded regret, anguish, wanting to fly and be an adult in this setting that is obscure and out of order of God entirely. I was again now fatherless. So now I'm in this position now that I am fatherless yet again at an older age, between the ages of 18 to about in my 18 until about my late 30s, like 40s. Okay, so now I'm in that space. Okay, and the most disappointing was, and it's not any fault of anybody. But when I knew that I needed to fly, I needed to get out, in my 40s, I needed to fly, I couldn't. And I had to ask to be let go because I was responsible for so much in the church. And I needed to be released because there's a saying that they say, once you're in the church, you cannot do anything else. That didn't make any sense at all. It's just not what God intended. Man intends that, but not God. And I had to study to show myself approved. That means I had to study the Bible. I had to study myself. I had to study the world. I had to do those things in order to say what's good for Edna. What spiritual realm, what spiritualism, what relationship with God is good for Edna. How do I interpret Jesus? How do I interpret the Bible? How do I do all those things for me, not for anyone else, but for me? So being fatherless brought all this emotional baggage along with me out of the church. I had it on in the church and I had it out of the church. So I had to take off this baggage and I had to unpack it and get down to the fatherlessness, which I just explained to you. So the purpose of this and the objective of this talk here is to shed light on the emotional and the behavioral impacts of growing up without a father, particularly from the perspective of me as a woman who turned to religion for solace. The discussion that we're going to explore is going to probably bring up some emotional turmoil, which probably did for me when I was experiencing it, but it's all due to fatherlessness and how religion will impact that and how strong you will be drawn to that because of that fatherlessness. While it was initially supposed to be providing comfort and ultimately fell short in preparing me for the real world challenges. See, hiding in church and being in behind those walls and doing those things with only those church people or these type of people did not prepare me to be diverse and inclusive, did not expand my horizons to learn new words, new verbiage, new lands, new travel, did not prepare me for that, did not prepare me emotionally when somebody said no to me, when somebody said yes to me, when somebody liked me, when somebody didn't like me, when somebody gave me, flowers, when someone just appreciated me, or when somebody just couldn't stand me. It didn't prepare me emotionally for any of that. So by sharing my journey today, I hope to aim at highlighting the importance of integrating emotional intelligence and practical coping skills with your spiritual belief for holistic personal growth. I'm just putting the disclaimer out there. So you don't have to listen to me. You don't even have to watch me. But I will tell you, you're going to be more enlightened. You're going to unwrap some things within yourself that when you find out what fatherlessness has done to you and why you're behaving the way you are now, things will change. So what is the emotional impact of the father's absence? One, it's feeling of abandonment and low self-esteem. For me, I had low self-esteem even as being a model. And I look back at all my jobs. All my jobs were perfecto. They were the best jobs ever. But I didn't feel worthy of them. I didn't even appreciate them. And when I did get involved in a relationship, male, female, or any other, just having friends, I often felt abandoned, and I had to give the ultimatum, hey, you can't be their friend if you're my friend. It was the craziest thing. And you know that saying, I'm a loner? That's just the ego hiding the fact that you feel abandoned and you have low self-esteem. Then there's trust issues and relationship challenges. Fatherlessness often leads to difficulty in forming and maintaining healthy relationships, and that's romantic as well as familial and as well as friendships, period. You will have challenges because you will have feelings of you're going to be abandoned. You're going to have feelings that go along with what, those issues. You're going to have feelings. You're going to struggle with it. You're going to struggle to trust people. And you're going to have that constant fear of being abandoned. You're always going to challenge everything they're going to say. You're always going to pretend to be something that you're not. You're always not going to be yourself. 3, the need for validation. The incessant need for external validation. I see this a lot, and I talk to people a lot. And my clients especially. One of them is always getting awards, always taking classes, always doing this. Oh, when are you going to settle down and do one thing? When are you going to do? When are you going to maximize one of those certificates or degrees to the ability that you got it for? Need for validation. 15 different things that we're doing. I used to do it. I know. I know about it. I used to do it. 15 different things. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, I'm that, I'm this, I'm all over the place. Need for validation. There's no such as master, jack of all trades, master of none. I want to master one thing at least and be good at that and not be all these other things at one time. Because although they're your skills and your education, you're good at one thing. And if you're biblical, how does it? Some preachers, some teachers, didn't say everybody, it said some preachers, some teachers, some elders, it says all that, right? It brings the names down. So you got to think about that, right? Validation. This manifests by seeking approval from peers, authority figures, and romantic partners. Not being yourself. You become somebody else. You put on a facade on Sundays because you want to impress everyone at church. And then on Monday through Saturday, you're a different person. Putting on a facade. You want to get dressed up, put on makeup, and show your body all on Facebook. You want to look how great you look. That's it, validation. Need for validation. That's why most people get involved with, doing their body over, always doing their body over and over and over and over. Validation, need for validation. And then the 4th is your emotional dependence on religion. Your emotional dependence on doing something that connects you to what you think the connection of the spirit is. I did that. I just told you 29 years. And I just filled in the gap for you on how religion stepped in to fill the emotional gaps that left me as a father who was absent to me 29 years. Think of this now. I'm 27 when I meet him, right? Only spent 3 years until he passed away. 29, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. 4 years. 4 years. Okay. Passed away, right? And then I spent 29 years in church, trying to fill that gap, and still wasn't able to. See, it was the initial comfort that I was seeking and the sense of belonging that religion provided, but then didn't give me any emotional or behavioral balance and no personal growth whatsoever. No personal growth. Didn't give me any. The emotional turmoil of growing up without a father for me. And we're going to talk about this just briefly because I'm running out of time. But here's what the emotional turmoil of growing up without a father I've experienced. Again, I experienced the feeling of abandonment all the time, and we felt these things. We really, really, didn't know what they were because we were trying to fill the emotional void, and we turned to religion or something that really made us had a connection, right? But it made us really void in the emotional part of it. Now I'm going to share with you what the behavioral development did for me, my behavior deficits. Despite the comfort and the structure that religion provided me, and my emotional and behavioral challenges, they still were there. The teachings and the rituals that they offer, spiritual solace, but they did not necessarily equip me or any individual that I've spoken with or know with any practical skills needed to navigate the real world and its emotional complexities. Yeah, I know. It was an ongoing struggle for me. Here I am in my 40s, not being able to navigate speaking to someone. And you wonder why you're afraid to speak. You can't get on camera. You can't. You're doing it every day. You're on God's camera every day, but to get on a regular camera, you can't do that. Emotional regulation, you're up and you're down. You're down and you're up. You're sideways and you're relationship management, forget it. And your self-worth in the pits, right? In the pits. And the second thing that it's impacted on is reality, facing reality. You never face reality. You never face that you had to do a lot of your work. You never face the reality of that. You never face the fact that if you want something, you got to take some steps to get it, and the rest draws to you. The reality of it that Jesus Christ is gone, and he can't come back to give you anything but what he left here as words of encouragement. You think he's here. You think God's here. God's in here. Reality. We never made the transition to what the Bible really meant. There comes a time in realization that religious faith alone cannot address all our emotional and behavioral needs. Thus, the belief that if we go to a therapist, we're not strong. Don't go to a therapist. That's witchcraft. Don't do all those things. Don't read astrology. It's witchcraft. But if you were to understand and read the Bible, it talks about numbers and stuff all the time. So why wouldn't you think about or even address or even read about astrology? Not saying you have to go overboard, but why wouldn't your mind be open to it? Because facing reality is part of being locked into that category of religious faith. Then there's the transition that you're supposed to take on. It involves acknowledging the limitations, relying solely on religion for emotional support, and seeking additional tools such as therapy, self-help resources, or to develop a well-rounded approach to your personal growth. When I was involved in religion, I thought if I had a problem, I'd go to the altar, cry it out, slobber, stay on the ground, roll on the ground, be in the church, sleep in the church, and it would go away. No, 20 something years of that. And the trouble still remained because I didn't do anything about it. I didn't face the reality and I didn't take the transition. I'm telling you, by understanding these impacts, really, you can better appreciate the importance of approaching your healing and your personal development without having to depend on religious faith. There's a balance to it all. And you can address it. You can address the emotional scars, because if you keep saying that, God is good, even though they're treating you wrong, that's not even a band-aid. That's just unreal. Your emotional scars are real for a reason, for you to address them. And these are emotional scars because you are fatherless. And it also is there to help you foster resilience and become emotionally healthy. But you got to do the work. You got to face reality. You need to do the work, and you have to make the transition that the scripture comes to life in you. That's practical, not literal. So how did it become an emotional substitute? And we already went over this, right? The comfort and the community, the rituals and the rules. Because remember, fatherlessness, we had no rules. Because dads give rules. There's no rules, no sense of stability, no order. So the psychology in religion was, hey, here's a ritual, take it. Here's a rule, take it. And then you had clear guidance. And then you had an expected outcome. Sometimes it wasn't to your wants, but it was an expected outcome, right? 3, there was a dependency on religious validation. You were validated in religion. You were validated. You did something good. You did the rituals. You did the rules. You were validated, right? There's a community of leaders and community of our peers. We were validated. We needed to be approved. So religion tied us into that. And as long as we adhered to the performance and we adhered to the rituals and the rules, we were part of the group. 4, shortcomings of religion and emotional emotional preparedness. See, the teachings emphasize spiritual growth over emotional and behavioral development, which weren't correct because we're down here on earth. Spiritual doesn't need to grow. It's straight to God. It don't have nothing to do. We can't do anything with spiritualism. We can't do anything with the spirit. It's straight to God. It's in us. Straight there. It's in there. So there's nothing we need to shine up around it. We need to work on it. We need to figure it out. Nothing you have to do. What we have to work on is our emotional and our behavioral development. That's where we connect to the world. I will tell you that religious doctrine failed to address real-world emotional challenges and behaviors. Taught me nothing, and I explained this to you. Taught me nothing, and not until I again aligned the transition, and I didn't take it literal. I started taking it inwardly, and I started applying it practically in my own life, in a spiritual of the higher self. Did I understand? So I don't ask God for things that I can do something about. I don't. I ask him for things that I can't do anything about. And I don't know how to even pray for. And literally I don't really pray for a lot of people. I pray for myself that I get it right, because I don't know what the other person needs. Prayer is so misused that I don't even say that word because it's so misused. Because I've heard people pray against other people, pray on other people, and this mouth, all of us have the power of life and death is in the tongue. So what we say and do for other people happens. Spelling, right, comes out of your mouth. Spell comes out of your mouth. Power. Again, I'm getting on something that I know you guys are probably going to say witchcraft. Yeah, because power, it's in your mouth. Anyway, so we talked about the real world challenges. Now I am coming to a conclusion of it all, and in my personal reflection of all of this, and it's important to understand that your emotional intelligence really matters. And you have to integrate your faith with real world skills. Faith, not religion. It's two different things. Faith, not religion, with real world skills. I learned that when I took off and just left and went to China. I had to learn that myself, that I was in this world alone. I was over there with no one that I knew. I had only my passport, shot record, physical record. And if I got sick, I was there alone. Those people there had to help me. Okay. I learned that. Real world skills, navigating real world situations. You have to begin by, once to come out of this, you have to begin because it is an abuse. It is a way of a trauma. So you have to begin to work with somebody through that, whether it be a therapist or a coach or a self-help resource. And I even know someone who is a great guy who is a therapist that has a coaching organization directly around, religious abuse. You have to begin to integrate your faith with real world skills too. And emphasize that I want to emphasize that your emotional and your behavioral development is important. And it's also very important especially for those who grew up without fathers. You have to gain that balance back, because when you don't have what God intended for us to have, fathers, mothers, caregivers that really care for us, fathers and mothers that really care for us, you're out of balance. And until you get that balance back, you're always going to go through the same struggles. So I'm encouraging you to seek some holistic approach to personal growth that includes, and not limited to, defining what your religious faith is. What's good for your faith? What is it? Not a religion, but a faith. What do you believe? And I can truly tell you, if I ask 100 people, what do you really believe? They can't tell me. Just like they can't tell me who they are. Who are you? They can't tell me. They can tell me a bunch of roles and the things that they heard around the corner, but they can't tell you who they are and what they believe. I hope that I said something today that really helped you, that really is going to encourage you to really reflect on your faith. Heal from your fatherlessness and actually get some emotional healing for that, and your behavioral healing, so that you can become balanced. And listen, if you need any of this information, or you would like, an in-depth report on this, or in-depth PDF on this, I can give that to you. Just remember to put your comments, your questions on the bottom of this video, and I'll definitely get back to you. I hope this was helpful. My name is Edna White. I am your life coach, your author, and also your motivational speaker that can help you get the strategy you need for lasting results. Bye for now.